Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Medical Alley podcast. My name is Bobbie Dressen, and I'm delighted to host today's episode. We're joined today by Benjamin Zander, a world-renowned conductor, teacher, and speaker. His book, The Art of Possibility, offers a transformative approach to personal and professional leadership, emphasizing the reimagination of challenges as opportunities and fostering a mindset of abundance and creativity. We're thrilled to have Benjamin deliver the keynote at the 2024 Medical Alley Summit in February. Benjamin, it's wonderful to have you on the Medical Alley podcast and to speak with you today. Thank you.
Pleasure to be with you. I'm looking forward both to February when we're all together and now speaking individually on the machines, on the Zoom screen, which in a way, is very nice also, because when you're in a room full of people, you are speaking to everybody simultaneously. And when you're on the screen like this, you're talking to each individual person on their own. And that also has a very special quality. So I've discovered the power of Zoom is very great, even in the conveying of musical ideas and teaching. It's been incredibly valuable. I've done some of the best teaching I've ever done in COVID, which is very interesting, because you think that it would be a handicap, but in fact, it's turned out to have many, many advantages, because you can see very closely into the other person, and the other person feels as they're being attended to on an individual basis. So isn't that one of the beautiful things that's come out of COVID? And there are many other things that come out of that horrible period in the world's experience. But I have a whole section on my website dealing entirely with the wonderful things that happened in COVID. Isn't that a strange?
No, I think it's right in line with your beliefs around possibility,
Right.
and finding positive and abundance and creativity out of even things that others may see in an opposite fashion. So I'm not surprised by that, and I'm going to have to check that out.
Yes.
Should bring up some interesting points. Let's start with you and your love for music. How did you find music, and what keeps you excited to continue this work each and every day?
Oh, it's amazing. I found music virtually after birth, because my father was a wonderful amateur musician. And I put the emphasis on amateur because the word means lover, a lover of music. He was a true lover of music. He wasn't a professional. He was a lawyer by profession. But when he came home from the office, he would sit at the piano and play with such an ecstatic look on his face, and his body would move from side to side like that. And I was about 4 or 5, and I remember saying something like, "Whatever he's having, I want that." And that was, it came very early on. And then I started sitting at the piano myself and doing what he called klimpering, which was just fooling around on the piano. And then gradually I started to realize that there were sounds I could make and create that were new and mine. And so I started writing them down. And sure enough, by the age of 9, I was a composer.
Oh,
and
my
shortly
goodness.
after that, I became a cellist. But music was part of my life really from the beginning. And we played in our family. All the children played something. My brother played the violin rather poorly, became a very great doctor. My sister played the piano and became a very great art historian. My elder brother, a great lawyer in the English legal system, and I became a musician. And so that's how it happened. But it was part of the language of our life. And that comes from a very interesting tradition in Germany. My family came from Germany. My father lived in Berlin. And there was an idea amongst German Jewish people called Bildung, which is culture. And it was very, very significant and important. Whatever you did during the day in order to earn money, when you came home, Bildung, learning art and music and literature. My father knew the whole second part of Goethe's Faust from memory. Imagine that's 12,000 lines, which he knew from memory, and he knew. So, of course, I could never test him because how would I know? But he knew Schubert songs from memory, and Wolf and Goethe, and he was an art lover, and he was a practical musician, a viola player, piano player, all of this. And so I grew up feeling that art was central, not peripheral to life. In other words, it was a natural way of human beings being in the world was through music. And that has gone on through my entire life. I'm now turning 85, and I feel just as excited at 85 as I was as a little kid and as my father was playing. This love, this burning adoration and involvement and excitement about music never dims. And I've never found a period when I wasn't inspired and in love and engaged and excited and challenged by what I call classical music. That's the tradition of music which we designate in that term. It doesn't mean that it leaves out jazz or popular music. On the contrary, it's all absorbed. But the great strain of classical music from the beginning, from Monteverdi and Palestrina and these early composers, Vivaldi and so on, right the way through until modern times. And when I was 9, I wrote some compositions, as I said, and they were put into a competition and rejected by the adjudicator. And my mother, who was a very energetic and forceful woman, instead of being depressed and discouraged by this judge, she sent those compositions to Benjamin Britten. Now, she didn't know Benjamin Britten, but he was the most famous composer of the day. And he called up a few days later and said to my mother, "Don't worry, your son is only 9 years old. He's doing wonderfully. That's fine. Don't worry. And would you like to come and spend your summer holidays in the village where I live in Suffolk, in Aldborough, the village where he lived?" And so the whole Zander family spent 3 years a summer holiday in Aldborough. That is a story of possibility, because for my mother, the word no was an invitation for another conversation. You get a second opinion, right? If you
I
don't
like it.
if you don't like what you hear, you ask for a second opinion. So that's possibility thinking in its style, in its manner. You could say it's pushy but she didn't feel she was pushing anything. She just wanted to inquire what is the value.
Curiosity and value, yes. What a gift you had from both your parents when you think about it. I mean,
Huge gift.
planting the seed and the nurturing around music, your mom being such a role model in terms of art of possibility in and of herself. I mean,
Right.
that's a gift.
You see, the thing about them that one should remember is that they were refugees from Nazi Germany. They came to England, and they were so grateful to England and to the English people that they couldn't see anything wrong. When my father paid his taxes, he told me, "I pay every last penny of my taxes because that's the only way I can say thank you for Britain having taken us in and given us a home and given us safety and refuge from the Nazi scourge." So we grew up in an atmosphere of gratitude and of recognition of the privilege that we had. Most people, if they're born into a country, they take all that for granted.
Take it for granted.
And they try and cheat on their taxes. But what a silly idea. That's the one way you can say, "Now I can help you." You see, it's a completely different atmosphere if you grow up in that way. And so I'm very grateful for that. When I can I tell one little story?
Yeah,
It's very funny.
absolutely. Yes,
When I
yes.
became when I became an American citizen, the judge I was alone with the judge and some friends, and the judge, as they do when you come in to become an American, they ask, you have to give up your previous allegiance. And I said, well, Judge, this is a little difficult for me. And then I told the story of my father and the taxis. I said, I cannot give up my allegiance to England. And he said, well, I think as a special case, we'll add it on to the American.
Aw.
No, that's nice. There was a lot of humor also. My father loved to make humorous remarks. And the last remark he made, the last thing he said, he was 96, blind, and completely invalid. And my brother was his doctor.
Okay.
My brother Luke, he knocked on the door. He was blind, so he couldn't tell. And my brother said, Dad, it's Luke. And my father said, is there anything I can do to help? That was the last thing he said. He died immediately after that. You
Oh
see,
my goodness.
it was a
So always caring for others.
beautiful relationship to the world. He knew he wasn't doing well. He didn't think he had long. He didn't, I suppose, but my brother said his shoulders were kind of shaking with laughter as he said that, because he knew it was funny. It's somehow a wonderful way of always making. And another thing he used to say, which was so beautiful, and I've used it more and more as I got older, which is, it's too early to judge, he would say. And whatever the circumstance, it's too early to judge. And he apparently got that quotation from, I think it was Chiang Kai-shek, was asked about the implications of the French Revolution. And he thought for a moment, he said, it's much too early to judge. So, so when my father was about 94, I said, Dad, you're 94. He said, still too early to judge. Much too early to judge. Right? So if you grow up in that atmosphere, it's charming, it's amusing, it's light, and at the same time, it is serious. It was very, very serious
There's
atmosphere.
responsibility tied to it.
Yeah, yeah. It was a wonderful atmosphere to grow up
When
in.
you have great responsibility in your role with the Boston Philharmonic. What is this role that you're doing taught you? What's been your greatest takeaway from it?
Well, actually, that's of course what I'm going to talk about when I come to speak in February, because what I learned was the most profound lessons of leadership which you can find anywhere in the world. And I will reveal that, but I'll give you a little glimpse, which is that the conductor, everybody makes a lot of fuss about the conductor, the maestro, right? It's very important. And he's very grand fellow, sits standing on his stand. But actually, the conductor doesn't make a sound, right? Not a sound comes out of the conductor. He gets his power from his ability to make other people powerful. And I've said that phrase so many times. When it hit me, I think at the age of 45, it suddenly turned everything around, because now I realized that my job was to awaken possibility in other people. So that changes what leadership is about. Instead of domination and forcing them to obey your will and to have control, you're putting all your attention on eliciting, on bringing out the power that is in the players. And when you realize as a conductor that the instrument you have, these 100 musicians, all of whom have been highly trained and have worked their lives to bring their art to the culmination, until you release that power, it's nothing. There's no capacity for that orchestra to function until the conductor opens the door of that energy and that power and that imagination and the spontaneity and the training and all of that. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing to be doing. It's a very invigorating thing to do. And it's very empowering for the people who are being led because they are asked to give everything they have to give. And as a model for any kind of relationship, even a relationship between a husband and a wife, or a father and a son, or between a coach and a football player, whatever it is, that relationship flourishes if the coach or the leader understands that it's not his or her power, but rather the power of the people being led. And that is essentially the idea which I'm going to bring in February, and I'll do it in a very elaborate way, so that not only people understand it intellectually as an idea, which I can tell even through your glasses that your eyes are shining bright, but that you can go away and do that in your own life, because otherwise it's meaningless. Otherwise you're sitting in a speech and you go home and it's exactly the same. I want everybody to go home with a completely different attitude to every aspect of their life. If I don't do that, I'm wasting their time and mine.
I'm expecting you will accomplish that just based on our conversation.
I have the most wonderful time doing this. I've done it a great deal all over the world in hundreds of different places, and I never fail to have the best time. I just love to do it, and my reward is the shining eyes of the
shining eyes. So
Yeah.
if I were to ask you what's your favorite part of that, it's watching for shining eyes, or is there another piece within that that's your favorite?
Well, the shining eyes is the window into the soul. You can't lie with your eyes, right?
That's true.
So my reward, when I say my reward, most people think of rewards being in terms of wealth or fame or power, all the things that people strive for. When I say my only reward, or the only one that I care about, is the shining eyes, what I'm saying is I know that those eyes are the window into a transformation which has occurred in that person that will translate into a different relationship to the world, to work, to failure, to every aspect of life. And that gives me an immense satisfaction. I mean, you can imagine what that does for me, knowing a little bit like a priest or a vicar. I see what effect that has on people, and I know that it does. And the satisfaction of seeing their eyes shining and their warm response and applause and love and singing and all that we do in this wonderful hour and 45 minutes or whatever we're together, it's immensely satisfying, and it never fails. Possibility never fails.
That's good to know. Has there been a point in your life when you've had failure? And could you share a moment how you learned from that experience?
Oh, daily, absolutely daily, if not hourly.
I run close to you there.
Yes, it's very simple. No, failure is the most natural and inevitable part of life. The thing is what you do with it, not the fact that you have it. And what I teach my students when they make a mistake, I say, when you make a mistake, instead of the usual response of pulling down, is how fascinating. Hands go up, and giving away some of the best things about the talk.
Okay.
That is one of the great discoveries, that first of all, when we make a mistake, we usually pull everything down, tension, anxiety, pressure, and that makes it more likely that you'll make another mistake. So by raising the hands like that, I mean, it's a silly gesture and you can't do it in the middle of a concert. Although once I taught that to a youth orchestra, and one of the trumpet players made a huge, of course, the trouble with the trumpet, if you make a mistake, everybody can hear.
Here's it. Yeah.
2,000 people in the audience, and this trumpeter went like this.
So he dropped his trumpet
That
then?
was as far as he could do.
Okay.
But
That's good.
all my students, all my players know how fascinating. And the result is there's an atmosphere of ease, of confidence, and above all, of risk taking. Because if you know you're not going to get into trouble if you make a mistake, but that the person who has given you permission not only to make a mistake, but to take the risk, and if you make a mistake, not to blame you, punish you, or otherwise seek retribution, then
Right.
people, first of all, they relax, so they're less likely to make a mistake, but also they um, they recover quickly and are less likely because they don't waste time blaming themselves or blaming the conductor or blaming their colleagues or blaming anybody. They uh, they say, "Oh, made a mistake. What did I learn? On we go."
That's good. Well, when you think about your classical music fans listening, I'm going to totally switch gears because I'm thinking about music now. Do you have a favorite piece in terms of your own music?
Well, that's a wonderful question, and in a way, if I may say so, a silly question, because wonderful
Okay.
because it draws attention to the pieces that one has grown to love and admire and return to constantly. And there are many, many such pieces. To choose one is like asking a parent to choose their favorite child, which very few parents are willing to admit to. However, if you ask the question in a slightly different way and said, which piece would you conduct if you only had one concert left?
Ah,
Then I can give you an answer, and that would be the Symphony Number 9 by Gustav Mahler. And if anybody's interested in knowing why I
I am.
left it, go on my website, and I recommend that for everybody because
Okay.
it's a playground for music. It's benjaminzander.org. And there you will find, yes, a playground of music and possibility and explanations. I say everybody loves classical music. They just haven't found out about it yet. All right. So my website is designed to having people find out about classical music. And there's one whole section on Gustav Mahler because that's the composer that I've devoted with Beethoven as the two most important composers for me in my life and career. And there, spending a little time there and getting to know, for instance, there's a recording of the Ninth Symphony of Gustav Mahler made by my youth orchestra, also a professional recording by the Philharmonia, which was nominated for a Grammy. I mean, it's wonderful, world class. But there's also one by my youth orchestra. And this is an orchestra of 12 to 21-year-olds. And you might ask, how on earth could such young people play a performance which got spectacular reviews from music critics everywhere, reveal the truth and depth of a piece like Gustav Mahler's Symphony Number 9, which is one of the greatest expressions of humanity and experience known in the entire repertoire of art. How is that possible? Well, I've spent a little time on my website, and you will discover that the answer to that. So, without being forced to say my favorite piece, because I would have to include something by Schubert, because Schubert is such a deep and fantastic. I mean, impromptus for piano of Schubert, or the Schubert two cello quintet. I mean, these are works of such stupendous majesty and greatness that how could they not be your favorite? But then there's also the Mass in B minor by Bach, and there's the Ninth Symphony by Beethoven, and it just goes on and on
And the
and
list
on.
goes on
I
and on.
have about 100 favorite pieces.
That, you know,
And I never get tired of them because you always discover more things. It's amazing. This is the difference between classical music and popular music, which is popular music makes an instantaneous, wonderful impact physically. Dancing generates energy and gets young people out of puberty alive. The classical the classical music world is an endless search for truth and beauty, and you never get there. There is no way of getting to the bottom or to the essence of a Beethoven late string quartet or a Mozart piano concertos. I mean, these are works of such stupendous complexity and richness, or let alone an opera like Don Giovanni or Marriage of Figaro. Incidentally, on my website,
Yes.
there's a coaching I do of a young soprano from Marriage of Figaro of Mozart. You can look it up. There's a search program. Marriage of Figaro, Susanna's aria, De Vieni non tarda. That's the name of the aria. And I take a young soprano who is singing that thing, and I work with her in great depth in order to bring out all the richness and irony and sarcasm and brilliance and humor and tenderness and love in that music. And by the end, half an hour later, she's singing on a completely different level. You can hardly believe how the change. But what the miracle is, the music that Mozart wrote in order to bring that. I mean, if you do that, we just get completely awed by genius of that kind. I mean, it's just there's nothing to compare with it. And so that's our privilege as lovers of classical music, to spend our lives in, I mean, it's like living in the celestial firmament. It's surrounded by stars, imagine.
Well, so as we close, that's one of the things, and I think I hear you somewhat describing it when we think about, what keeps you motivated and excited about the work you're doing. I'm hearing some of it in you in terms of the creation, pulling things out of people. But are there other elements of that you?
There's so many ways of answering your wonderful questions. To me, at the heart of all of this is enthusiasm, because the word enthusiasm is a very beautiful word, because theo, in the middle of entheos, enthusiasm, the word theo means God. Now, you don't have to be a believer to know about God, right? And so the essence of enthusiasm is to be alive to possibility, alive to energy, to alive to what some people refer to as God. And I have another word for it, which is possibility. It serves just as well. And I won't be satisfied till when you go to a hotel and you open the drawer, there'll be two books.
Okay. That would be a new success. Benjamin, thank you. Thank you so much for your time and insight. And we can hardly wait to have you join us in February here in Minneapolis at the summit. And is there any closing remarks you have for us?
About Minneapolis, very interesting, because Boston, where I live, is one of the great musical centers in America, and Minneapolis is another. And I'm proud to be part of the young training of young musicians in Boston, and I conduct one of the youth orchestras, so there are several. And Minneapolis is the other city which has a vibrant, incredibly rich musical life, with St. Paul together, with the chamber orchestra and so on. It's one of the richest places in America for classical music. So when I come there, I feel as though I'm coming home.
Oh, well, that's nice to know. It's I mean, we do have a lot of, even our universities, right, so dedicated to it. I just down, Northfield with St. Olaf College, and so both our private schools as well as our universities are enriched with and believe in music.
Rich territory.
Yes.
Wonderful
Yes.
place. So I'm not looking forward to the cold weather in February, but I think we'll stay underground when we're walking from building to building.
Well, here's the deal. We can get you straight from the airport to the Four Seasons, the
Right.
events in the Four Seasons. So unless you choose to venture out from there, we may have to, if you want to go down to Orchestra Hall or the like, we will have to drive you there.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward
Yeah.
to thank you for your wonderful questions and your own enthusiasm and your own openness to possibility. That is a huge secret of leadership, to be open to other people's possibility. That's a great gift you give to the people who you interview, because it's a pleasure to talk with you.
Oh, thank you. You're very kind. Thank you very much.
Dostoevsky, the great Russian novelist, apparently said, with an intelligent person, even conversation is a pleasure.
I could have to reflect on that one.
Well,
Okay.
we began with laughter and we're ending with laughter.
Yes, we are. In credit to your father. So
Yes, exactly.
thank you so much. Bye-bye. Good to see you. And I'll have a wonderful start to your new year. And enjoy the rest of the season of light. And we will see you in February.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.